Good afternoon, evening, morning, whatever time it is that you're watching us. And for those of you live, it's 12:34 Pacific time. And very excited to actually get hands-on in this next segment to take a look at an empathy map and actually the practice of CX and some of the key components and approaches that different people have in looking at this work. So hopefully you can learn some new things and I can learn some new things from all these great experts that we have on the show. For those of you who are joining our prior segments, we're joined today by the CEO of IDEAN, which is Resto Ladasmaki, and also Angela Long, who is working with me on We Are the Solution, a nonprofit community movement we've started to bring people together to help each other make the change they want to see in the world. And also today joined by Rit Mishra, who is one of the senior design directors at IDEAN. Of course, today's show is brought to you and to me by IBM Commerce and their new IBM Journey Designer product, which is focused in the area of customer experience design and journey mapping. And we'll, of course, share the URL for you so you can go ahead and check it out yourself. Thank you very much for joining us. I really appreciate your time today, Kit. Good to see you again, Angela. We have essentially gotten to a point where we have gone through one brainstorming round of this empathy map. And for those of you in the chat room, I'm going to take a quick screenshot to share this with you. But where we're at is that we've gone through a brainstorming already. And now we've been at the point where we've refined it a little bit. And we're essentially trying to figure out if we've done the right thing, what to do next, and really just use this as sort of a straw man so that we can get insights from other people in terms of how they approach it. Let's start with Rit, if we may, actually. So, right now at this point, we're looking at this empathy map. We've been through this round of brainstorming. We've actually clustered a little bit. And in fact, while we were looking at it, we were realizing that we were clustering around positive, negative feelings, positive, negative sayings, et cetera. And I'm just wondering, when you get to that point that you've captured the brain dump of what people feel this person is thinking, saying, doing, what do you do from there?
So I would love to kind of very briefly talk about empathy map, what they are really. So empathy maps are nothing but just a tool to document what you captured from stakeholders or end customers, right? Just to create a map around who you're designing for so that you have a clear understanding about their needs, about their goals, aspirations, and so on. So it's a simple tool to have a clear, unified view about who that customer is for whom you're designing. And this plays really important role when it comes to having a clear alignment with your customers, or in some cases, also internal team. And I'm pretty sure you guys must be aware of persona creation. That's also one of the tools that you create to paint a picture who this person is for whom you're designing, right? An empathy map takes persona creation a bit forward, which captures their needs, their pain points, what they're aspiring, and few other things, right? So it looks like I'm quickly looking at this map, and I can see that you guys have a very clear outline of some of the pains that this customer has, and also gain, right?
Yes. Well, that's the thing. Let me just say this, because again, do we have a clear understanding? I mean, I know people in this market. I think that one of the best ways to understand our personas and the people we're trying to serve is to actually be a part of their community, right? This is where I hit upon the idea that participation is marketing. So I haven't done like specific user research around this. These are people I know. And in fact, Nicole is a specific person that I know. And she's much more fierce than the persona that we've given her in this map. Right. But it's really based on those assumptions is where we're starting from.
Which is absolutely correct. So in many cases, you may not have opportunity of actually meeting those people firsthand. So if you know certain group of people or customers that you can create an empathy map, that's awesome. And in many cases, that's also what we do at IDN. Not all the projects give us opportunity of diving and doing a thorough research. So what we do based on our understanding and assumptions, we create these personas and create the empathy map so that we can kind of relate to these people. And that could become our starting point.
Yep.
Hey, Rick. So this is Angela. I had a couple of questions. Though we have a large variation of pains and thoughts and action. So is there any right or wrong way to do these maps? It seems like we're a little all over the place. Is that we're taking the right direction on this?
So I think this is perfectly fine. I would say as a next logical step for this. So when you look at empathy map, you can immediately understand who this person is, what their needs are, what their goals are, why they are frustrated about certain things. And we can easily say, these are the pains, these are the gains, and so on. So very logical next step to this is creating a customer journey map where you can actually map some of these, what happens before, during, and after, right? And in some cases, you can also focus on front stage and backstage. So what kind of action these customers are taking. Can you talk a bit more about the community so that I have...
Absolutely. Yeah, because of course, by the way, just so everyone knows, we're kind of just making them dive right into this without much briefing or background, which is a little bit tough. So thank you very much for being willing to do that with us.
It's our life, That's it's always the same. I did call to read like 20 minutes before. So.
Yeah, well, and again, I think that's the way that we reveal the approach. So that question is very important to make sure we have a briefing and the understanding. So the community is something that we're doing. There's actually two stories, if you will, in it right now, and the name probably is going to change. But I just had this feeling about 2 months ago, that too much of what we're doing in social activism and trying to create change is based on confrontation instead of cooperation. And that because it's based on confrontation, when we get together, we immediately get to fighting about the things we disagree with instead of seeing each other as our common humans. This gets to our language discussion earlier, Resto, and how that's an important part of that respect. So what we're looking to do is gather stories and inspire people to look for more cooperative ways to solve big problems. Ways to create compromise and what have you. And the way we're doing that is actually by hosting these events, these brain jams, we call them, where people are able to get together and essentially network. And we have a core question that we ask that actually stimulates a conversation in sort of a speed dating sort of situation, where we ask each other, what is the change you're trying to make in the world? How can I help? And in this way, we're trying to connect people, ideas, and resources that might help them advance their cause. For me, this is something I've always done when I meet somebody and they share what they're doing. I'm like, oh, did you read that article last week? Oh, do you know Bill? Oh my gosh, I've been thinking about this for a long time. And have you ever done this? And of course, they're usually things people have thought of because they've been thinking about it a lot more than me. But it's that idea of that immediate spark for all the connections that we can make in our brain that we don't make in search engines.
Okay, that makes sense. So one key thing that I see, you guys have only one empathy map, and you did mention that there might be very different type of personas that you might come across. So what's your thought? Have you guys thought about creating multiple empathy maps or multiple personas?
Yes.
Or is that...
So the three that we really identified in terms of level engagement and time availability and what have you that somebody would have to join a movement and to help support it was a participant who would just show up. Okay. And, it's sort of based on the laws of participation from Jacob Nielsen, right? It's the 1-9-90 sort of rule in it, where 1% is going to be very active and become volunteers. That's our Nicole, and that's why we decided to focus on this one for the purpose of the short amount of time we have. And then the other one is going to be an occasional participant who's sharing online, who joins the conversation and posts a comment, who might contribute and do some research or maybe even write a story. And then the last type is really Dave, and Dave is just somebody who shows up every now and then and isn't really active, but is an important part of the overall community because maybe they're doing things for other people or sharing their knowledge and connections, but tends to be a little more silent.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, because one, when it comes to empathy map, I think it's very important to identify some of the key participants or key actors, if you may, and create those empathy maps purely because in some cases, they might be very distinct and you might want to approach them very differently, right? In terms of service, in terms of design, in terms of your innovation, and so on. So it's very important to have those distinct empathy maps and persona. As a next step, what I would also recommend is customer journey mapping. So when you actually talk to some of these persons, whether they are participants, volunteers, and so on, I'm pretty sure there's a journey, right? There's a journey where they are thinking about, they are getting all this information from you guys. They're thinking about joining this community. They might have very different mindset when they are in that stage, right?
Yeah.
So mapping that could be really interesting, which is before they have actually joined the community. Then talking to them once they have joined the community. What kind of goals do they have? What are their actions? What are problems that they are facing? And this is, again, very classical customer journey mapping that we do. We also call it service blueprinting in certain cases. You do empathy mapping, you take it forward, do a customer journey mapping where the focus is to map user or customer actions before, during, and after. Before, as I explained, when they are in a mindset of joining this community, how you guys can actually facilitate that. What kind of problems they are facing. Are there any resistance why they are not actually joining the community, right?
Yes.
And same thing during community. So you need to, again, empathize with them, understand what their needs are, how they are functioning, what their actions are, and also try to map why they are dropping off, right?
Yeah, so let me come back to a specific question, though, and let's just focus on the kind of before component, right? And I'm going to focus on, because right now I'm doing an event tomorrow night here in San Francisco where we're doing a brain jam. I am heading out to London and to Dublin and Bilbao, Spain over the coming weeks. We're going to be hosting little events there. So the goal right now is how do we create awareness and then ultimately get them to sign up to come to one of the events. So we can focus on a very specific goal relative to how to find people like Nicole in these various communities and cities, physically focused. So that helps with the kind of targeting on it. And of course, from there, we're applying traditional advertising. How do we get to them? How do we reach them? What have you? But when we start thinking about that journey from awareness to interest to participation, what sort of questions do you really ask to frame that better? When you're looking at that, okay, we're doing our advertising. We don't need to talk about the advertising component. Let's just presume we know how to reach them. But what are the questions we ask when we're looking at that, moving from the awareness to interest, to actually getting them to express that interest and understand them better?
I think one thing which is very important, again, it could be very ad hoc, ethnographic, discussion. What is really important is to create some sort of framework where when you're asking some of those questions, you're covering certain aspects, right? And then you can frame your questions around those. So if I go back again, when it comes to customer journey mapping, what we do, we mainly focus on before, during, and after. When you're focusing on before, try to capture customers' feedback. How do they hear about you? Which kind of media, which kind of channels they are actually on, which might become very relevant for you to approach. So some of those, again, it completely depends on your context and how you want to approach, but building a framework, what kind of things you want to capture is really important. And it could be people, it could be different channel, backstage, how they are actually hearing about the community, how do they participate, and so on.
Yeah, and so this is where we really got to get into the stakeholder research and actually have conversations with them ultimately when we can. And because this is so intimate still at this phase, literally we can talk to them about this and find this out at the events and where they actually come in. So we'll start building a better knowledge. And I guess that gets to the other point here, which is even the persona maps and the empathy map is actually an iterative process. We're going to keep finding new things and keep refining it over time, right?
Absolutely. And some of these are living documents. This is just a start. When I look at your empathy map, this is just a start. You have to keep populating it. When you talk to them before, during, and after experience, you will gain more insights and it will populate even further. Sure. And one more really important thing is it's not, so I think sometimes what happens when we are doing research, it's always we asking questions from them, but it should be more of co-creation in a way, right? Really asking them to participate in that research phase as well. So instead of you building a set of questions, really engage with them in a way that they can really open up and start sharing some of the things which you may not be able to capture if you have set of questions.
I mean, one of my favorite tools, like when the customer journey has become like more concrete, is to bring in a tool we call participatory design. Pretty sure you are all aware, but it's an amazing tool. You bring in like 6 to 8 stakeholders, couple of designers, one good moderator, 2 hours, 3 hours, and you start playing around with the the concrete solutions. Like your question from awareness to impact. It's like what's there for me. You need to answer to a question like what is there for me. And looking at the empathy map here, as Reed said, I would move to persona creation. I would start thinking like where's the friction, how we can remove the friction, and literally working together with your certain different personas, even bringing all those 3 personas into the same room and start playing around with that. And that will lead, my one of the favorite topics today is the storytelling. Like it's a story. Think about it like a day in a life or week in a life. Concrete story and like how it would look, what would happen there. Every step, and that's literally like the simple form of
that's awesome.
Absolutely, the whole point of empathy mapping, persona creation, customer journey mapping, service blueprinting is to build a story which everyone can relate to and understand. And I think that's really powerful. And again, these are just a tool, right? Empathy map, service blueprinting, and so on and so forth. And we need to be really open when to break away from some of these things and not get into a trap of using tools for the sake of using them.
Yeah, and I love this stuff and learning from other people, because there's always a little nuance in the practice or the question or things that really opens things up in a different way for people. It did for me today, and hopefully for those of you who have joined us. But I'm getting the hook. Actually, I got the hook 5 minutes ago, but I wanted to keep talking because this was very informative and valuable. So I appreciate your advice today and your input on how to actually get the work done behind CX, and talking about empathy mapping and persona development and service blueprinting and, of course, journey mapping behind it. And just for those of you who have joined us today, so I can get this wrapped up, and we can open up to a little bit more Q&A. This is Chris Heuer for CXD Now. We're sponsored by IBM Commerce today, along with the IBM Journey Designer product. And today I've been joined by Resto Ladamoski. Not as Maki, sorry. I get my S mixed up. Well, my grandfather's a Jankowski, so I'm more used to the SK, but not as Maki.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And Mishra, thank you very much for joining us, both from IDEAN. And Angela Long, working with We Are the Solution. Thank you again, Angela. And thank you all for joining us today. Very happy to have you hang out with us for a little while and listen in. And we're going to be opening this up in our next segment to take questions from you. So looking forward to hearing some of that. You've got a